Welcome back. This is a meeting and an interview I've been looking forward to. It's West Red Lake Gold. If you haven't heard about it, you've been asleep a bit, but you've probably heard enough. But we're going to hear more details about it, and we're going to hear it from Gwen Preston. So this is exciting because Gwen is well known. She's the resource maven. And I've kind of thought that they must have done something very special to pull her away, to get her to come on board. So that's going to give you some anticipation as to what is going on here. And we're going to hear it right from Gwen as to what's going on. What pulled you in?
I mean, I think that's actually, thank you for that introduction. I mean, I think it is a good starting point. So yeah, for 10 years, I ran a newsletter. I wrote about what I was doing with my investments to try and help investors who are interested in mining have access to the knowledge and the network and the time to, find good stocks. In that process, I invested. I love a good exploration story. I love a good production story. But when I look back over my investing trajectory, the best returns came from companies that were putting new mines into production. And that makes sense. That's a justified re-rate. You go from needing money and spending money, which granted is what West Red Lake is doing right now, but you go from spending money to making money. So that's a justified re-rate. That's that second half of the Lassonde curve. It's the golden runway. There's lots of different names for it, right? And that was the most reliable and significant returns that I got in my investing history. So then when I came across West Red Lake, which I had owned in my portfolio, as a company that not only is putting a gold mine into production, but is doing it on an accelerated time frame, with an incredibly experienced group that has deep access to capital and has a vision, to be honest, to do this several times, this mine being our first and then continuing, and they needed someone to help tell the story. I shut down my business to join that.
See, that alone, because you would have seen like without doubt, like thousands of projects, analyzed every company. You've probably talked to everyone.
I've talked
over
to a
the
lot
years.
Of people.
So you would know every story angle, this, that, some like, you learn a lot of lessons. So it goes a long way to say, this is the one where you're going to get the most leverage to a leveraged story that you want to participate in, because you've done your research and we were talking earlier, if I'm in this space and we've got this opportunity with gold and precious metals, who's coming on board soon? What producers are coming on board soon? And what's the best way that I could leverage to make the best out of this opportunity?
Absolutely. So, the company West Red Lake Gold Mines came to be. The idea for it happened 2.5 years ago when Frank Justra, who had been largely absent from the mining space for the previous 8 years, he'd focused on philanthropy, he'd focused on other investments. He decided that he saw a new gold bull market coming, and he talks at length about that. Shane, who's our president and CEO, agreed, and they got to know each other. Now, Shane is an incredibly experienced mine builder, which it deserves some comment because our space is actually a bit lacking in deeply experienced operators.
Yes.
And that's because we have this crazy cyclical industry where people get bored of waiting for a bear market to end, and so they find other work, or they don't join the industry because there's going to be another bear market around the corner. So we're a little short on people with deep experience, but Shane has spent 25 years building mines around the world. And he pulled together a team of people who have that similar rare real experience building mines. So put that team together with Frank's timing in the gold market, Frank's access to capital, and Frank's ideas on how to grow companies and structure deals. That was the genesis of West Red Lake. The Madsen mine, which is our first asset, was a sad story for all the Pure Gold shareholders, undeniably, right? This was a really exciting idea. Let's take this historic, high-grade mine in one of Canada's storied gold districts, Red Lake, and let's put it back into production. And it got a lot of market attention and a $1.2 billion valuation at its peak because of that excitement. Now, they made some missteps and the mine didn't work. But when Shane and his team looked at that, we decided that those were fixable mistakes. So that's the work we've been doing. We've been doing definition drilling a lot. We have 46,000 meters of definition drilling. We've been engineering. We've been doing all the investing in the capital projects that weren't done previously that impeded efficiency at the mine. And so we've been preparing to put this thing into production, and it's an unreal opportunity because we bought something that had $350 million recently invested. We bought it for basically $6.5 million, plus a royalty and some stock. And now we've invested money into it, and we're going to be able to take this thing from purchase to production in 2 years, which is really accelerated.
Yes.
Now, I don't think, we were chatting about this a bit before, I don't think the market really understands that production is right around the corner for us.
Yes. And you were saying as well, because I'm so used to seeing that first end of the Lassonde curve where it's the excitement, oh my God, we got a great drill hole, and then the market goes up, and there's a big torque to it.
Yeah.
And not as many people focus on that kind of period of like, well, we're going to build this out and this and this.
Yeah.
This is, you're at this stage here where the next run out of, which was really what, if you're talking about the business of any business, is revenue generating. Mm-hmm. Like you're that close to, we're going to actually mine. We're going to do the business.
And I mean, I think the market doesn't totally see how close we are to production because we bought this asset that already had all this investment and already had permits, but it still needed work. And we raised money in the market. We didn't do a debt package. And so we've been doing all the work, but we haven't been able to talk about production because we haven't put out the mine plan yet. We're doing it all at the same time.
Yes.
I think an important message for anyone who's interested in the story is that, you know, we're in the middle of October right now. In the next 2 months, we will provide a lot of clarity on those questions.
Okay.
So we plan in the next 2 months to issue that pre-feasibility study, which will be fairly feasibility level in a lot of aspects because we know our costs. We've been underground for the last year.
Yep.
The mill ran 2 years ago. There's no more questions about how this will be built because it's already built. So it's a high level. It's closer to feasibility than pre. Has to be a pre-feasibility because we don't have reserves on the project.
Yep.
So call it, we're going to issue our mine plan, and we certainly plan to access the last piece of capital that we need to carry us into comfortable commercial production, the goal for which is sort of the end of next year. So once we have the mine plan and the money in the bank, I think then the market will be like, oh, you really are close to production.
Yes.
And that's when I think there's potential for investors to see that re-rate. We're being valued as like an unfinanced developer right now. That's like maybe a 0.2 NAV. Once you become a financed developer, then you make more like 0.5 NAV. Once you're a junior producer, you're maybe 0.7 NAV. And we're about to define our NAV, our net asset value, with that mine plan. So I think there's a lot of potential to re-rate. And underlined by the point you just made, there's hardly any new gold mines going into production next year, let alone ones that are owned by a small company where you get the most leverage, because going from zero to production is really significant by definition, even more so than going from 200 to 300,000 ounces, whatever it might be. So I think there's a lot of clarity on the investment thesis that is going to come in the next little while. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that re-rate hopefully start to unfold, because we're going to be producing, we are hoping to be very close to commercial production 1 year from now.
See, that's huge news. And you know, it's sad when you have the mistakes and the issues from the past, but there's a learning lesson from anyone, and whether it's if they listen to yourself or Sprott or Rick Rule, if you put in a little bit of effort to look into the company and the work that's been done, it isn't a matter of, oh, this can never be a mine, it's not going to work. That's not the question. Someone might go, oh, it didn't work with pure gold, so it can't work. Like, no, that's not the question here. Put some effort in, and you'll see, oh wow, this laid out plan isn't that long to fruition, and there aren't many stories that can really take advantage of gold at 2,600 and escalating, rather than just, hey, it's gold, it's gold in the ground. Like,
absolutely. And I mean, totally fair enough that to some extent, most mines going into production get that re-rate from sort of construction decision to first gold. I think our re-rate is going to be shifted. It's going to go from pre-feasibility study, which is coming, but is very close to production, maybe through to like first few quarters of commercial production. Because there's a big group of investors out there who will stay in the show me camp. And that's valid. This mine failed 2 years ago. We believe truly that we are remedying the missteps. But there's a lot of people out there who won't believe it till they see it. And that's okay, because we're going to show them. And so I think the re-rate is still to come. That's the opportunity for those who are hearing the story right now, is that you haven't missed the re-rate. It's all been a bit shifted because we're doing it all at the same time. And the nature of the asset means that it's going to be a little bit shifted, but it's happening, I think, through 2025.
And it's convinced you to come on board. There's the torque, there's the leverage. Listen, you've heard it here. Pay attention, do some homework. Send me any messages as well. We'll rifle them off to Gwen if you've got anything, but this is something you should pay attention to. Red Lake. Gwen, real pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
All the best. Take care.